time now for the 360 round, breaking down General Motors earnings and the broader auto sector. For that, let's bring in our panel now. Tony Zipparro, CEO, Equity Set, and Bob Lung, who is the President and Chief Options Strategist, Explosive Options. So we're talking about GM's earnings, and we are seeing the stock under pressure to the tune of 6.6% right now. I mean, it wasn't the Q2 earnings and it wasn't the revenue, because they were both a beat. It was the margins pressure that seems to have investors on the back foot here. I do just want to get your thoughts, perhaps, Bob, on what you think of this.
Yeah, good to see you again, Sam. So I think that investors are taking much more of a cautious approach here with General Motors. Certainly, one of the reasons why the company had a misstep this last quarter was due to the effects of tariffs. And it was a bit surprising, actually, because we thought there was going to be quite a bit of pull-through from consumers in buying cars way ahead of what those tariffs were going to do. Now, obviously, I think that helped in March, but that was the first quarter. But I think there was a lot of expectation for some follow-through of some of that pull-through buying in April. It just didn't happen. And I think that it was very disappointing to see the margins much less than expected, but it was encouraging to see that the company did reaffirm guidance for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that was encouraging. The CEO has called this a so-called adjustment phase. I want to get your thoughts, Tony, on what the markets are thinking about this.
Yeah, I think the stock got a little ahead of itself. I personally was a little surprised to see over the last couple months from the last quarter it kind of carry and trail upwards, again, right around kind of a 7 to 8 times PE, which is near its top range, knowing that a lot of these tariff pressures were going to happen and we're going to kind of come through. And so I think that's the story of what's happening in the market. The underlying and the fundamental business, it looks strong, right? I love the fact that they're looking to mitigate 30% of the tariff weight over the next couple quarters, that they're making the right moves. Again, you've hit it. The bad story and the bad side of it's the margins. 80% of that margin compression came from tariffs. The other 20 still came from regular business operations. So that's not what you want to see. But I think a lot of it is there's a lot of headwinds, right? There's still tariffs to be had. There's potentially a slowdown in maybe credit and buying, right, from U.S. consumers. So I don't like it at this price. I like it a little bit lower, maybe when it gets to the 6 times PE. But I just really think it got ahead of itself. The business is still strong, still a lot of potential growth and profit to be had there.
Okay, and the company does say it's looking to reduce some of its tariff exposure. So I suppose we have to keep an eye on that as far as what they say in the coming quarters. I do want to also talk about, what is happening here at home with some of the EV credits being phased out, the impact on companies like this. Bob, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so, the EV credits are a little bit of a concern, obviously, not just for General Motors, but for Tesla and some of these other companies that have a strong initiative for electronic vehicles. But look, you know what? General Motors posted some extraordinarily strong numbers in the EV market, 111% surge in deliveries over 2024. That is a huge number for them. And they are now sitting number 2 in the United States for EV deliveries, just behind Tesla, which obviously is the dominant player in the business. Top EV brands for General Motors this last quarter in this market were the Equinox and also the Hummer, which is a big vehicle. It's really impressive to see these big cars, and they're very expensive. Being able to have some sell-through and delivery for the General Motors market. So they're part of their portfolio of electronic vehicles is certainly here to stay, and they're investing in it in a big way.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to be hearing from Tesla as well as we get those earnings, as we get the first cab off the rank for the Mag 7 from that company. It's interesting, Bob, when you talk about Tesla and GM, really taking the crown as far as some of those deliveries, those sales domestically. It really has been the pace of that EV adoption that has still been a concern for the market. So on that note, I'm just wondering, Tony, what your thoughts on the broader market are ahead of those Tesla earnings.
Yeah, I think from a broader market standpoint, and Bob hit it, it's been impressive what GM's been able to do in the EV market. 3-4 years ago. To be honest, I didn't necessarily think they could make that big of an impact and get to the point they're at just because of how dominant some other players we thought were going to be, whether it be Tesla, Rivian, Stellantis, any of those names. And that's where it's really been. GM is at least fundamentally valued name, whereas Tesla, right, coming into it, it's a little bit more speculation of, is it the car company, right? And that's where kind of the astronomic valuation comes in. And so I think from an EV play, while I believe GM, right, and is a name that you kind of want to wait and see and maybe not jump feet first in, I think it's a bigger risk of Tesla's the other play, but where is that going to go? Is that going to go up $200? Is it going to go down $200? And so I think when you're trying to find an pure play EV, I think you kind of wait and see. You maybe play GM a little bit more than Tesla. Again, just because from a speculative standpoint, Tesla isn't trading at EV multiples or automaker multiples. It's trading at robo-taxi and futuristic plays. And so I think there could be a lot of carnage in that market, depending what comes out from those results.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, whether it's a car company or a tech company or energy company, but we'll be obviously hearing from Tesla tomorrow. Tony Zipparro and Bob Lang, thank you so much for joining us here on Trading 360.